I call the farmer and say, hey, I know it's a blizzard. You're probably not gonna be able to see anything, but if you see flashlights back behind your place tonight, that's us. I shot a deer. Just want to give you a heads up. It's like, all right, well, you better get them before the coyotes get them, because there's a lot of them around. Well, the blood was gone. I mean, it was covered. Even on the corn stalks, the vertical corn stalks, there was snow sticking to it. You couldn't see nothing. The concern of mine was we had been into this track job for about 400 yards now.
Wow.
Which is a long way to go.
It's a really long way, yeah.
And then we picked up a fresh set of coyote tracks.
So the key with these mics, you want to get real, you can tell it sounds a lot better like that than there's this. Just closer. Put your freaking face right on that thing.
All right.
So are we good? Are we rolling?
We're still rolling.
We're live?
We are very live.
That's awesome.
All right.
All right. So we have Matt Tagget in the house today, and we're one man short, as you may see. Dev couldn't make it today. What the heck, Dev? Anyway, Matt's in the house today with Rek Broadheads, and this is a That One Hunt series podcast. And we had a lot of really good feedback from, I think we've done 3 of them before. And then we kind of got into the middle of the hunting season, and we'd been trying to link up for quite a while now.
We have, yeah. It's we started talking about it right during the middle of kind of the rutcation there. And
yep.
Yeah, it's you know how that goes.
I always tell people like the hunting industries are like, I'm new to it, kind of new to it, 2 years now, but it's this trending thing where like nobody does anything in the fall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody does anything at all. Everybody's hunting, and then show season starts. And then, in terms of getting guests for podcasts, especially in person, it's tough.
It can be tricky. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. And then it's just kind of a mad rush into season from there. So
yeah, I'm really stoked that you're here, by the way. We built this studio literally for the That One Hunt series. Like that's what we kind of envisioned. So the fact that you're here sharing a story today, it's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited to have you guys had me down and got to check out the place finally. It's super cool. So
you and I, let's see, where did we meet? The first time was at the Total Archery Challenge.
This past summer, yep.
And we had a booth next to each other, and we kind of felt each other out a little bit, and then you had randomly messaged me, and you're like, hey, you need to go to the Deer Fest.
Yeah, that's Casey Morgan from Huntworks there. He bought that show, Deer Fest in Wisconsin, and took it over, and he was trying to get some new and innovative products and companies there. And I'm like, hey, so shot you a message. What better place to go than to expand your reach to Wisconsin and get some more people at the Deer Fest show. And yeah, met up there. And
it was a sweet show.
It was. I think the next couple of years, he's got some exciting stuff in the works, and I think it's just going to continue to grow. One
thing that really stood out about that show to me was the guys that in Wisconsin really can drink beer.
Those guys don't mess around, do they?
They honestly did. Like you go to shows and you kind of get the vibe in different states. Like we went to a Wisconsin Dells show, open season show, and it was great. And that was literally what stuck out to me. I was like, wow, these guys they drink a lot of beer. Like drink like fish.
And one thing I couldn't believe is there's literally a bar on every street corner in Wisconsin. I don't know if you noticed it or not. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's the land of cheese and the land of beer.
Yeah.
What's that? Spotted Cow? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Spotted Cow. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We just bought some of that on our way back from the West about a month ago.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's not bad.
So did you do a bunch of hunts this fall?
Did a few. Yeah. Actually, I guess I probably spent more time on the road this year hunting than I have in quite a while, if not ever.
Yeah.
But mostly just between 2 states, North Dakota and Iowa, back and forth. I didn't have an Iowa tag myself. My friend did, and I committed my season to filming him. And did two week-long trips to North Dakota, and it was a fun run.
Did you get one in North Dakota?
I did, and that's the one we're gonna talk about today.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't realize it was an out-of-state hunt.
Yeah, that's it.
So before we go kind of like into the story, the hunt, everything like that, so tell me about Rek. Like, I want to hear the founding story. Like, you're the owner, founder. I want to understand, like, I mean, that's something we talk a lot about on the podcast. Sure. Actually, is the innovative side of things, being an entrepreneur. So, like, give me the story. I want to hear this.
Yeah, my dad and I own the company. We're family owned, and his background is he's worked in manufacturing for 42 some years, right in there. I had previously done some work for some outdoor companies, marketing side of thing. We had our own film hunting show and stuff on Carbon TV, YouTube, stuff like that. So I was kind of involved in that a little bit. And him and I, my dad, we love to bow hunt. We travel the whole country every year bow hunting. That's just what we do. And we've shot every broadhead under the sun, And we had shot some really good broadheads and shot some really bad broadheads through the years as well. So we thought, with his background, that why not try to design our own head, try to work some of the flaws out of mostly the expandable broadhead. So we went to work on this in 2018. By 2020, we had a head ready for market, and we launched it. Literally the day we launched it was at the Lansing Deer and Turkey Expo, not too far from here, and got there, set the whole booth up, like this is going to be our first public launch, and an hour after setting up, they closed the state of Michigan down for COVID. Mm-hmm. So they told us, tear down, we're not doing the show, we're locking the state down, all this stuff, and I'm like, well, so this is going to be an interesting way to launch a company, Mm-hmm. So our first 2 years, we really just dove into kind of the factory direct online sales. And then as the state started to open back up and we were able to get to some shows and stuff, dealers started showing interest, and it's just kind of snowballed from there. It's just we wanted to build a quality product that we first and foremost trusted and believed in, and then make it available to people and just do things a little different, make it right here in America. And the customers first, the dealers first. It's not about us; it's about you guys out in the field, and that's so we're just trying to put our spin on a quality product and keep it made in the U.S. That's big for us.
That's huge.
It is,
and people don't realize, sounds like you're designing everything. You're doing it all.
Yeah, we're doing every bit of it. It's we do the prototyping in house. The actual manufacturing is done. We have a plant we work with in Grand Rapids and one in Ohio, so back and forth between those two places. But we do all the prototyping, all the testing, the designs, all that stuff, and we do the laser etching in house. So that's
the piece that I think a lot of people. I don't blame them for not understanding, but like a lot of people don't do that. You know what I mean? A lot of companies, they outsource a lot of things. Yep. And I'm not knocking on anybody specifically or anything like that, but it quite literally is very difficult to do all of those things in house. Like we can speak to that. It's like there's a lot you're juggling rather than just selling product. You know what I mean?
But I mean, realistically, I don't think I'd rather do it any other way, just because there's no better way to learn every in and out of your company or business in general than diving in and doing it all. You know, getting your hands dirty and just figuring it all out. And, from there, kind of beginning to outsource and make things more efficient. But that's the best way to do it in my eyes.
100%. So you said that you started trying to make a head in 2018 and you launched it in 2020.
Yep, I think we might have. I think we killed a couple deer with one. It's funny, the first head in, I don't know if it's 2018 or 2019, the first head that I killed a deer with, the blades were actually lasered out of actually Stanley razor blades, utility blade knives.
Yep.
That's what the first blades were made out of. The ferrule and the tip were pretty much what they are now, but it was our blades, we couldn't find a good way to make them, so we just took Stanley utility blades, lasered them out, slapped them in there, and went and killed my first deer with that head that way. And we've come a long way since, but it's just interesting to see where it all started.
So can you give me a little more into that? Like that 2 years, you said, hey, we're going to make a head. You're designing, you took those blades. What are you looking at? Like, what were you trying to achieve?
Ultimately, we wanted to take the expandable head and we wanted to beef that sucker up. We wanted it to hold up to bone and hard impacts.
So hold on. So sorry to interrupt you. The first head was expandable?
It was the expandable. Yeah,
okay.
That's where we started. And, because that was the head we like to shoot expandables mostly. And that was the head that in years past we had issues with, whether they didn't open, they opened in flight, or they hit bone and just, blew apart. We wanted something that was really going to hold up to hard impacts. We wanted something that was not going to fail. And, if you look at them, you see that big beefy chisel tip on it. That thing just, it does a number.
This thing right here?
Yeah, it's the same head on the expandable, and it just crushes bone. And it's not too often you'll actually hear of an expandable head busted through the shoulder. And, not every time. A lot of that depends on your setup, but our heads do a number on bone and shoulders and stuff like that. So it's kind of a mission accomplished. But then we also we thickened the blades up. The blades are 39 thousandths thick, which for the expandable category is
thick.
A pretty beefy blade. Yeah. So that was really the goal. Beef this thing up. Let's make an expandable that you can not only trust, but this thing is going to hold up to bone and hard impacts. And then somewhere along the line, we decided that, hey, we can take this same ferrule and we can have fixed blades that will slide right in there and become a modular system. So now you can take your expandable and turn it over to a fixed head out of the same ferrule, same
Right.
tip. So it just kind of started innovating from there. And then we went to the FX4, which you have there. People, really liked our fixed head, but we're like, hey, we want a 3 or a 4 blade. So we designed that one, and man, that has been a really good seller. People, fixed heads are kind of coming back in style now. For a while there, I think expandables kind of ruled. Back in the early 2000s when Rage took off,
Yep.
expandables became really popular, and then some people started seeing some failures out of certain expandables, and now fixed heads are starting to come back in style. And
I'm glad you brought this up because that is absolutely like there's trends,
There
especially
is.
with bows.
Yep.
Like the speed, we were talking about that a little bit before this, but the speed, like the expandable thing, Rage really did a good job in marketing. And that was like, I remember that was my first, like that's the only expandable I knew the name of kind of, you know what I mean?
Who didn't shoot Rages? I mean, come on.
And so, but it's so true. I want to kind of, we were briefly talking about this, but like you'll see haters on expandables. And then the new trend is the single bevel, double bevel, fixed blade stuff, right?
Yep.
The stuff that is going to rotate in the critter as it goes in, and it can penetrate bone better, right?
Sure.
Like, give me your thoughts. Like, I know this can be, kind of controversial, I guess, but give me your thoughts on like, what's the difference between fixed? What's the difference between mechanical? Like pros, cons? Like, give me that.
Yeah, I think like you said, it's very controversial. It's a very heated topic. There's people that are tried and true, single bevel. There's people that will stand behind their expandables till the day they die. And kind of like we discussed, I really don't think there is one perfect broadhead for the job. There's so many different variables that come into play. What are you hunting? Where are you hunting? What kind of bow setup do you have? What's your arrow setup? There's a lot involved with this. Sometimes I think people just overlook or overthink it too. People dive a little too far into this. At the end of the day, you've got to punch a hole in that animal, and blood loss is what kills the animal essentially. So, you need a head. Speaking on expandables, that's going to open. It's not going to fail. It opens every time. You need something that is gonna hold up to bone, something that's gonna bust through bone. And I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons. It's a give and take thing. If you want to shoot a fixed head, you're going to give up a little bit of that cut. You're more the inch and an eighth, inch and a quarter cutting diameters. Now your expandables, you're up towards 2 inches. But then, every expandable, I don't care who you are, there's always the risk of malfunction because it is a mechanical item. There's moving parts in it. We've tried to refine that and make it as fail-proof as possible, but at the end of the day, it still has moving parts. So I think it's really personal choice, and I really think it depends on what you're hunting. For whitetails, I don't think there's any issue whatsoever with hunting with expandables. Now, if you're going for larger game, you might be better off with a fixed head because they do penetrate better as well because they don't have as big of a cut. So if you're going to shoot a moose or an elk or something, and you want to get a pass through, you probably want to shoot a fixed head.
Yeah.
But there's so many variables, so many different options. It really comes down to your preference, your hunting style, and that's kind of what we want to do is build a head for everybody.
Yeah. I like something that you said, like there's a different head for every hunt, every critter. Like you might not use the same thing basically. And I don't know if I've never really met anybody who does this, but I truly have like a different broadhead on all my arrows in my quiver.
Uh-huh.
I do. I have like 4 different brands. I mean, the way I look at it, if I'm in a thicker area, I'll obviously shoot my broadheads before I go out hunting, and sometimes I favor one over the other if it's just like right on, obviously.
Yep.
But if I'm in like a ground setting and I'm in some like grassy stuff and some thick area and there might be a potential deflection, I tend to not use a mechanical. You know what I mean? Just based on where I'm hunting. So like I don't know if this is weird or not, but I go hunting and I'll choose a different arrow almost like every other day if I'm going to different stands. I don't know if that's weird or not, but I really wanted Devin to be here because he shot both of his bucks this year with this head.
Oh, he did. Nice.
Absolutely was just clobbering them. I mean, both deer did not go far at all.
Uh-huh.
And he was very impressed. And I know he really wanted to be here to kind of talk to you about this specific head, but they're sharp. These are
very sharp.
These are very, very, very sharp.
Yes. And that's that's another argument there too is replaceable blade versus being able to sharpen your heads. People do sharpen these, but our theory was you're never going to be able to achieve sharpness that you do with a factory edge, on a stone or a sharpener. It's there's some guys that are pretty good at it, but I still don't think you're going to get that sharp.
Yeah.
And sharpness is what you want, right?
100%. Will they talk through your 3? There's 3, right?
Right now there's 3, yes.
Will you talk through that? And if there's anything else you want to add?
Yeah. So the XP, it's our expandable, and that's on that modular platform where it's able to be turned into a fixed head I was talking about. That's it's got an inch 850 cut, available in 100 and 125 grain. The blades are 39 thousandths thick. It's a 7075 aluminum ferrule. So it's a little stronger than some of the 6061 ferrules out there. It's got a 416 hardened stainless steel tip, and that's a 4-sided chisel tip. Like I mentioned, just really designed to bust through bone. Now the FXD is based off the same tip, same ferrule, just different blades. It turns it into a 2-blade fixed. So that's interchangeable as well. And then there's the FX4, which we were just talking about there. That is, it's a 4-blade fixed with a really low profile. It's got a 3/4 inch bleeder on it and an 1.125 main blade. And super stout, 39 thousandths thick blades on that as well. I would argue that's probably one of the toughest aluminum heads on the market. A lot of times people think you got to be shooting a tool steel or a solid stainless steel broadhead, but I would put this thing right up against all those heads and all the testing we've done with it. I mean, the thing is super durable and it flies extremely well. That's the one compliment we get on that head over and over and over again from dealers, customers, you name it.
Yeah.
It's just how well that thing flies. They can sight in their bow with their field points, screw that thing on, and it's hitting right there. And that's not always the case with all the fixed heads on the market.
Yeah. I go back and forth, like I was telling you. Like there's times where like I just can't get a broadhead to fly where I want it to at 25 yards. And I'm like at the point where I want to just snap an arrow in half because I'm like, there's no confidence there. And then I'll come back the next day and it might be my grip. And you're like, I swear I just felt, calm the other day. Like, but it's sometimes you can just tell day to day it's flying true. And then, this year I kind of switched to, I really was shooting more mechanical than anything. And I honestly was like a hater in the beginning, I think. Like I was like, I'm only shooting fixed. Like this is years ago. Like I'm talking like I wouldn't shoot mechanicals. But the last couple of years, like for whitetails, like you said, 25 yards, like I'm trying to, I want blood. I want to see blood on a blood trail.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to open things up. And I don't know. I go back and forth. Like I said, I always take a couple mechanicals and I always take a couple fixed with me. But yeah. I'm going to be using this blade next year, just because of Devin's experience. Like I'm definitely going to be using that.
Yeah, it's a mean little head, and I've killed a few deer with it. I'm not going to lie to you. The only thing I don't like about it is you don't get as much blood as you do with an expandable. If you center punch them, double lung them, it's still, you're gonna have no problem finding your deer, but it's not that 2-inch cut that.
I went on 2 blood trails this year that say otherwise. Okay.
Well, that's good. I mean, if you put a good shot, you have nothing to worry about. It's just, yep. It's when you make those bad shots is when that little extra cut, but that's the give and take of fixed versus expandables. It really is. So
yeah. Is there anything else before I'm going to switch gears here from broadheads to like kind of you? Is there anything else you want to mention on broadheads?
No, I mean, that pretty much covers it. We got some new exciting stuff in the works. So you'll see something new coming out of ATA this year, a new expandable. And we're just moving forward, trying to design the best products we can and trying to listen to our customers and what they want to see and just keep this thing moving forward.
You said it, like we've gotten almost all of our ideas through listening to customers.
That's it.
I mean,
it's about them.
It's quite literally a cheat code. They tell you exactly what they want, and you just have to listen, and that's awesome.
Yeah, that's it. That's give the people what they want.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me about you. Like, how did you grow up hunting? Where did you grow up hunting? Give me a little bit about like how you grew up and were introduced to the sport of hunting.
Yep. So I grew up on a Christmas tree farm. We lived right just outside of Frankenmuth there. And Frankenmuth, anybody that knows Frankenmuth, Michigan, is like Christmas capital of the Midwest, And so we had a Christmas tree farm right there. And growing up, I always had a spot to hunt. My dad was big into hunting, bow hunted his whole life, and introduced me to bow hunting at a young age. I think I was hunting with him at 4 years old, hunting on my own by 10 with a bow. And so I always had a spot to hunt. Eventually, we got out of the Christmas tree gig, and that property just turned into our hunting property now.
So your dad owned a Christmas tree farm?
Yeah, it wasn't his full time deal. It was just kind of obviously seasonal. But yeah, so we had a farm there, and
Like how much ground does one need for a Christmas tree farm?
so this was just 40 acres, just a 40-acre farm, which is I would call a mid-sized Christmas tree farm. But yeah, over the last 10 years or so, that thing has just really grown up into an absolute deer mecca.
I was just about to say, like, that's probably a whitetail bedding area.
They love it. I mean, these trees are now upwards of 20 foot tall and
Are you kidding?
thick as can be. And we've carved food plots into it and stuff. So it's only 40 acres, but it's a pretty sweet setup.
So is that where you hunt a lot?
Yeah. That's pretty much where I do. 90% of my Michigan hunting is there. And yeah, so I always had opportunities to go out and hunt as a kid. Dad got me into it at a young age. Eventually, we just started traveling around a bunch because the Michigan hunting, I'm sure it's a little better down here. You guys get some nice deer down this way, but up our way, it's tough to get a mature deer. So we started traveling around and just hunting different states, and really just became obsessed with it. And I mean, it's what we live for.
Yeah. So what about your dad? Like, how did was that something he just grew up in? I mean, the thumb of Michigan, I know there's a lot of hunters, but like, is there anything specifically that sticks out about your dad?
No, he just, he grew up on a family of ag farmers and always had spots to go throughout the family farm and stuff as well. He bow hunted from, back when he was shooting cedar arrows. So he's done it his whole life. And I naturally became his hunting buddy as a kid, and that's the way we are today.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So it sounds like your dad's pretty entrepreneurial as well.
Yes, slightly. He's worked in a shop for 40 some years, but on the side, he's always had some kind of different gig going. We raced motocross for years and years and years.
No way.
Yeah, and he got known throughout the motocross industry locally for building really fast motors. So he also started a little side gig, building motocross race engines and stuff.
So you grew up riding dirt bikes?
Yeah, I raced for 13-ish years maybe.
Really?
Yeah. So that's I
Did
guess
you ever break a bone?
a few.
Yeah. What did you ride?
Mostly Hondas or Yamahas.
Yeah.
Yep.
We Devin and I grew up. That was like something that we did was we rode dirt bikes together at the Silver Lake Sand Dunes.
Oh yeah. Really?
Yeah. We both had a YZF 250 for a long time.
Nice.
And then I can't remember if he upgraded or kept that, but I got a CRF 450.
Yep.
That thing, dude. Put a paddle tire on that. Dude.
Those dune riders are crazy, man.
It was weird. Like, we grew up going to the dunes, and like that was like our family trip.
Yep.
Like, I'd been going to the Silver Lake Sand Dunes since I was 0 years old, quite literally.
Uh-huh.
But I always remember thinking, like, man, I want a dirt bike out here. That was like the only place that I really rode the dirt bike.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Like, we didn't go trail riding. We didn't have a track. Like, I never had been on a track, but I was really good at riding a dirt bike on the sand.
Paddle tire or nothing, right?
Exactly. Man,
that's cool. That's really
There's
cool.
not many people that ride dirt bikes. So quick side tangent there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to your upbringing. So you were saying, I'm kind of intrigued by this Christmas tree farm. So you carved out some amazing food plots in a big Christmas tree farm.
Yeah. When we started doing that, when it was still, pretty young as far as trees go, the trees were 8 to 10 foot high, kind of when we quit the tree farming gig.
Are these spruces?
Yeah, spruce, pines, firs. That was kind of the three options we had there. But it was when they were still young was the perfect time to go in and start ripping these things out with a tractor and carving in all these food plots. And over the years, they've just grown up, and a lot of the underbrush has come through, and it is made for a deer mecca. And they feel pretty comfortable in there. A lot of times they're laying right in the property and they don't leave. So it's really I just wish it was bigger was the only thing.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a ton of hunters in Michigan, man.
They're on every fence line.
Yeah.
Yep.
There really are. And especially in the thumb, like, you're lucky if you can, that's something that we've talked about many times is if you can get neighbors that have bigger parcels. You know what I mean? That goes a long way.
I think that's a lot of it too. That's one thing people don't take into consideration when they're comparing other states to Michigan's hunting. We do have a lot more hunters, But you look at a state like Iowa, and the average parcel out there is what, 400 some acres.
Yeah.
What's the average parcel here? 20 acres.
Yeah.
I think that plays a big role in our quality of deer also.
It really does. So before we get into this hunt, something that we've called it the hunter profile. It's just a handful of questions. And basically it just sets up the listener to kind of like get a vibe of who you are, how you hunt, your style. And then, then we get into the hunt. And so if you're just listening to this for the first time, that one hunt, it's like if I were to be like, hey, Matt, we're sitting around a campfire, we're drinking beers, and everybody's like, oh, Matt, tell that one hunt. That one, the one that just sticks out among all the rest. And that's something that we're going to be continuing to do. We've explained this before, but this is a really cool series that we're trying to do with just bringing people from all around, and you're local-ish. And I'm excited to hear your hunt. I really am. So we're going to go into detail on that. But first, like I said, so I kind of already asked you how long you've been hunting, how you grew up. So what bow do you shoot right now?
I'm shooting the Matthews V3.
Yeah.
A couple years old, but really, I've contemplated getting a new one, but there's really no reason to upgrade. The thing is still killing deer. So
that's a very popular bow still.
Yeah, I love it. I not by any means tied to Matthews or married to the Matthews brand, but it went up and shot a few of them, and that thing shot really well, and been shooting it since.
What did you shoot before that?
I was shooting an Expedition Mountaineer. Expedition Mountaineer it was.
Okay. Yeah, this year I got that Phase 4, and it was like a huge jump. I thought it was like a huge jump in bow. Like I was shooting a PSE. I really love the PSE, but it seemed like there's a lot less vibration in this Phase 4, and I'm really impressed with Matthews. Yeah. What broadhead do you shoot?
Oh, man.
I know you shoot yours, but which one?
I carry them all in my quiver, kind of similar to what you do. Mostly because I'm in the tree with the camera, taking pictures of everything, so I like to have a variety. But yeah, I keep all of them in the quiver. The XP, the FXD, the FX4, and the new one coming out this year as well.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's a pretty mean little animal. Yeah.
Do you know what your booth number is at ATA off the top of your head?
I want to say 934, possibly.
If you're wrong, that's going to suck. But
it is going to suck.
You can't mess up searching Rek.
Hey, if he's wrong, then I will overlay the correct one onto the screen.
Perfect.
How about that?
Trav's the man.
I like it.
So is whitetails your favorite species?
It is. I get asked quite a bit, hey, why don't you go shoot an elk? Why don't you go hunt a moose? I'd love to do it. Don't get me wrong. I've never done it. I just really feel like whitetails are the most perfect animal to hunt. I love it. I love whitetails, and I just like chasing them every fall. And, you're only given so much time to hunt each year. So it's a give and take there too. So I tend to put all my time into whitetails. I've killed a couple of black bears. One of these days I'll get out west and chase some bigger animals. It just, I don't think the fire is really lit for me just yet on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I think there's really nothing like hunting a mature whitetail. They're just so mysterious, and especially in a state like this, it's a heck of a challenge.
Yeah, and they're all so different too. Just when you think you haven't figured out, you don't.
Yeah,
it's everyone's different.
And I've heard a lot of people say that too, where whitetails are their favorite, and it's interesting because that's like the most readily available big game species. So it almost seems like it like wouldn't be. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I guess it's obviously regional where you're from, but like white-tailed deer are everywhere. They're doing very well right now. They're doing very well everywhere in the continental U.S.
Yeah, you can go just about anywhere and hunt whitetail, and that's half the fun too, is trying to hunt them in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Different landscapes, different states.
100%. So do you have like a dream hunt?
Yeah, it would be a grizzly with my bow.
Really?
That's one of these days. Yeah, I don't know when it's going to be, but it's on the list.
Are you like making future plans right now, or is that like still kind of a distant goal?
It's distant. It's a long shot. It might not be a 10 or 15 year out plan, but yeah, it's if I could pick one thing to hunt other than whitetail and be the dream hunt, that would be it.
So is that like a big money hunt, or is it like you have to go to Alaska kind of thing?
Yeah, because I think you can't hunt in British Columbia anymore, I've been told.
Is that true?
Yeah, as far as I knew, like a couple of years ago, I saw, I think Jim Shockey talking about that, where they took away the rights to hunt brown bear, grizzly, whatever they are.
Because they're listed in the U.S. You'd freaking go to jail if you shot.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The people don't want you killing.
Yeah, aside from, I think, Russia, I think those are kind of the only couple of places. And I could be wrong. I haven't done a ton of research on this, but.
Yeah. I want to do that too.
It'd be wild.
It'd be crazy adrenaline.
30 yards with a bow in your hand.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I like that.
Maybe it's stupid. I don't know, but it just, it'd be fun.
No, that's a fantastic dream hunt. That's the first one I've heard. Okay. I like this question. So like after the obvious things, like, your bow, boots, like what is like the most important piece of gear that you think that you take in the woods with you?
I would say my binoculars. Yeah, I'm pretty big. They always stay right on my chest and right there, easy to get to, and I'm always glassing. I like to hunt a lot of open areas, and I'm always just looking.
Yeah, that's. I would probably have to agree with you. Like, I know some people who don't take binoculars, and I'm like, well, what do you do?
Yeah, I would feel naked without them.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So this is the last question. It's kind of deep. It doesn't have to be deep, but I think it's deep. So why do you bow hunt?
Ooh. Why not?
Why don't you hunt?
Yeah, no, honestly, I mean, I feel bad for people that have never had the chance to bow hunt. I really do. It's, there's nothing quite like it. Just, the chase, the constant, hunt for the animal, getting up close and personal. I haven't hunted with a gun in 5 or 6 years now. And it's just, I love bow hunting. And I really think if you've never tried it, you're doing yourself a serious disservice. I mean, just the adrenaline rush, the getting in that animal's bubble, beating them at their own game in their bedroom. That's some cool shit.
It is very, very cool. So November 15th, you don't go out hunting?
I don't.
Really?
Typically. I mean, if I'm out of state somewhere that it's still bow season, but yeah, I haven't hunted a November 15th in quite a while. That's
fantastic. I just had a kid, and so that kind of like takes away from a lot of the, still very young, but it takes away from the traveling thing.
Mm-hmm.
And usually we do, 2 or 3, it seems like that's what we've averaged in the past of like out of state trips.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, geez.
And I have nothing against gun hunting. I mean, if that's your thing, more power to you. It's just, for me, it's all about, getting them animals close and coming to full draw. Just that little, split second.
This was the first year for me where I think the 15th and the 16th, I went out hunting, and I haven't really gone out after that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like with the bow, like I agree with you. Like I want to get in close, but I think it's more of a social thing too, like gun hunting. Wouldn't you agree? Like, especially in this state?
It is. It's a big camaraderie thing. And, there's really nothing that beats going, up north to a deer camp and just hanging out with the guys. That's always pretty special. And I think our state's huge on that. Yeah, it's just, even the girlfriend now, she's a bow hunter to the core. We went out this year during November rifle season, and she hunted with her bow.
That's
put on the orange and hunted with her bow, just because it's just kind of different. I don't know really how to describe it until you've done it. I think everybody knows the vibe of being in a tree with your bow and getting those animals
pure.
close. Yeah, it is.
Pure.
That's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's all I got. So I want to jump into this hunt. We're going to go deep. So I want to hear all the nitty gritty details. Like, give me, if this is a multiple year thing, I want to hear all the way back right into right now. Hit me, Matt Tagget, with that one hunt story.
Let's do it. Probably could go back as far as 8 years on this. So this hunt took place in North Dakota. We drove out there 8 years ago now.
8 years.
8 years ago.
8.
Yep. Not a clue what we were doing. Just a couple of punk kids traveling the country trying to kill some deer, and had no idea where we were going, really, where we were going to hunt. Got there, jumped out of the truck. There's not a tree in sight, and we're just kind of scratching our heads looking at each other, my buddy and I, like, what the heck did we just do? This is a wasted trip. There's no deer here. Throughout the week, we ended up gaining permission to a farm, a really big farm with a lot of deer on it and a lot of really big deer. And over the course of the last 8 years, became really good friends with the farmer. And every year he lets us hunt. He's we're one of the only people that he lets hunt his farm other than family. So it's really, really neat, really special place. And, well, it would have been 3 years ago now. We were out there and, running trail cameras. We want to run a wide spread of trail cameras. We run
How much ground are we talking about here?
probably upwards of 2,500 acres.
Holy shit.
It's a pretty good chunk, but you got to take in mind or into consideration, there's hardly any trees. So a lot of this is just wide open farmland.
So tell me about how did you gain permission? You literally just walked up, knock, knock, knock. Hey.
Yeah, actually, so we were hunting public land, not having a lot of luck. Every day, every morning heading in, we would see a ton of deer crossing this area out of this guy's farm. And I said, hey, we've got to go talk to this guy. So we went and knocked on his door, asked for permission. He denied us access, said, no, I got family that hunts. I'm not really interested in having anybody on my property. And said, that's fine. We're here for the whole week. Here's my phone number if you change your mind. That night he called me up and said, hey, I know you guys drove a long way, come all the way from Michigan. Why don't you guys just go ahead and go out there and hunt? Like, oh, wow, mic drop, it's pretty.
Yeah. Couple of you guys?
Yeah, there was two of us and one camera guy. Mm-hmm. And so two of us hunting. And
so you were filming your hunts back in what?
That would have been, I think, 2016, I want to say.
You still have that footage?
I do. Actually, I killed a great deer on that trip.
So you're filming with like camcorders and...
Yeah, yep. Got that first hunt all on video.
Man.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Full velvet buck, too.
Is it on YouTube?
It's probably floating around there somewhere. I'd have to find it.
Okay. If we can find it, we're going to link it.
That'd be cool.
Just because.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, so he called me back, gave us access to the farm. Went in there, hunted that year, killed a great buck, full velvet 10-point, 140-inch deer. Super excited. And we've been going every year since. Taking, normally every year I take a couple of my good buddies or my dad, stuff like that with me. We killed a lot of really nice deer over the years out there and became really good friends with the farmer. We text back and forth throughout the whole year. He's dang near family,
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's a great relationship and just, very grateful to be able to hunt his place. So 3 years ago we were out there and got trail cam pictures of a deer. He was an 8-pointer. Cool looking buck, not real big. I would guess a 90-inch deer, probably 2 years old. Didn't have a tail. Or he had a tail, but it was really short. Don't know if it froze off in the winter, if coyotes got it, what it would have been. He just had a little short stubby tail, so we nicknamed him Stubby.
As you would.
Very fitting, right? So we hunted that year. I don't remember what we killed that year, but he hung around a bunch. We saw him a few times in person and went back the next year. And the area that deer was living in was a small, I'm going to call it like an overgrown homestead. It's maybe...
so there's like barns and silos and stuff like that?
Yeah, so there's really just one barn there. It's an old barn. It's, pretty much half tipped over.
Yeah,
there's a lot of just trash in the woods, stuff like that. It's like a 3/4 of an acre to an acre of woods or brush, whatever you want to call it, in a 5-acre cattail slough. Well, that's what the deer bed in is the cattail slough, and it's surrounded by crops on every side.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that's kind of what you hunt out there. The deer live in the cattails, so it's really an ideal setup. The year before, we knew that deer was in there. He wasn't a shooter for us the year before. And we knew that, hey, if he was in there last year, he grew and he was going to be a nice buck this year, likely. So we ended up picking him up on camera again for the second year in a row. He was, I would guess probably a 135-inch deer.
From 90 to 135?
Yeah, he made a pretty good jump.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you think that you would not have identified that deer had it not been for his tail?
Well, that was exactly it. It was the tail. You could tell. I don't think I would have identified him because of that big of a jump.
How many deer do you think that, like, you know what I mean? Like, that you don't catch up with because it just, there's no way he could jump that,
Well, that's exactly it. That's a significant jump. And
40 inches is a giant jump, yeah.
Especially out there, they battle really hard winters. These deer, it's all they can do to survive the winter.
Yeah,
out
no
there.
no thermal cover.
There's nowhere for them to hide. Most of the time, the food's covered in snow. I mean, and a lot of them die in the winter, or they're extremely stressed in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times you'll see where the racks just don't get as big, depending on what kind of winter they had.
Mm-hmm.
But so we picked up old Stubby Tail again, and we never had his shads, anything like that. So I'm just throwing out a guess around 135 inch. I believe it would have been a 9 or 10 point that year. And out there, we're not super picky. It's not like Iowa where we're waiting for the real giants. 135 inch deer out there is a great deer, and so my dad started hunting that deer pretty hard throughout that week. Never had an encounter with him. Never saw him. Had pictures of him every night, but he was a night owl, nocturnal, whatever, or we just weren't quite in his bedroom. I don't know. So we went back this year, and they had a extreme winter kill last winter. They lost upwards of 40% of their deer, and generally the older bucks kind of take it hard. So I've been told by the locals, just because they're run down from the rut, they don't have any body fat, and a lot of the big bucks had died off. So going into this year, I didn't really know what to expect. I was hoping he was still alive. There's a couple others that we were looking for.
How old is this deer now?
He would be 4 this year.
4 this year.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And, I was just really, really hoping we could get on him. So we went out for our early season trip. We went into the same area. Actually, let me rewind this. So I also learned the year prior, when he was a 135 inch deer, 3-year-old, that his summer range and his fall range were 2 miles apart. We would make 2 trips out there, normally a September trip and a late October trip.
Yep.
And in September, he was living in this little, I'm going to call it the overgrown homestead. And
cattails surrounded by the ag.
Yep, with a little barn in there. Come October, he was 2 miles away, living actually up behind the farmer's house. And he's got an area where he went in and planted a bunch of trees, kind of did some habitat improvements for the deer because it's such a wide open area. He did it for deer, pheasants, turkeys, all that stuff. But in the fall, this deer would start living in there, is what we were starting to see. So back to this past season here, we went out there in September. My girlfriend and I, plan was for her to hunt. I was going to film, try to get her first buck. Mm-hmm. And we knew we had lost a lot of deer over the winter. So we went into his September range, his summer range with the cattail slough with a little patch of woods, went in there, hung a camera, hoping that, hey, maybe this deer lived through the winter. I know a lot of big deer we were told had died. Let's see if we can find them. First night, sure enough, Stubby shows up, and he put on some serious antlers again. Full velvet. He was coming in like clockwork every day. Ray, my girlfriend, and I spent the whole week out there. We were out there for 12 days or so. Spent the majority of our trip hunting a different deer because he ended up getting inconsistent on his patterns, Stubby there. And finally, we had a big cold front coming in, and we weren't seeing the other deer we were going after. I said, well, maybe we should go sit in on Stubby. Well, we didn't have a stand. We didn't have a blind in there, nothing. So
when you say you're going to go sit in on him, that's in the fall range location.
Nope, we're still in September. He's
Okay.
he's in his summer range still. He's still full velvet, and he's shown up very sporadic. But we had a big cold front pushing in, and I figured he's probably gonna daylight in there.
Yep.
If he's gonna daylight this whole week, it's gonna be today. So we went in, rather than taking the risk of hanging a stand, taking the risk of putting in a ground blind, anything like that, we decided to clear out a little bush. There was a patch of bushes. So we went in and just trimmed out some branches, made a little spot for us to sit in the middle of it, and got in real early. And sure enough, he showed up. It was probably 3:00 in the afternoon. He come running in. So in North Dakota, you can bait. So we were hunting over a corn pile. He came running in to get his afternoon snack, and he knew something wasn't right. I was filming the hunt, and I think he saw the glare of my lens, and he went on high alert, ended up trying to circle around us, get our wind, everything, everything he could do to bust us, ended up walking up to within 6 yards of us and basically looking over the bush at us. And there was just no chance she was going to get a shot off. He spooked. And
So you guys were on the ground?
we were on the ground in a bush. Not an ideal setup, but it's really.
So he was walking in. You couldn't get a shot because he was on alert, or
He was on
because-
alert and he was coming right at us.
straight at. Yeah.
Yep. And once he pegged, I believe to be my camera, there was no moving. I mean, he was on us the entire time. I think I've got the GoPro was rolling the whole time, and it was like an 8 or 9 minute event when he was working his way in, and he never took his eyes off us that whole time. And I was kind of trying to coach her through it. She had never killed a buck, and I'm like, well.
So how big of a deer are we talking?
Turns out he was about a mid 150s, full velvet. He looked a lot bigger in velvet. I'll give him that. At the time, we thought he was a 160. He was a big deer, big body, mature. And so I'm in this bush trying to coach her through this as he's essentially on top of us looking at us like, all right, what he's going to do is he doesn't really know what's going on. So he's probably going to spin and take a bound or two off and stop. And like, you're going to have to stand up and draw, and that's your shot. And, long story short, he busted out of there. She wasn't able to get a shot off, and he walked out of our lives. We went home empty-handed, and I left cameras running for that time frame between September and I think I went back October 15th-ish. And he was showing up on camera still, not very frequent, nothing in daylight. And the closer we got to the October 15th trip, he just kind of stopped showing up. Some of our other cameras got knocked over by raccoons and stuff. I think I left 10 cameras out there. When we got there, only 3 of them were actually taking pictures still. So we didn't have a lot of pictures of him. We knew he was still around. When we got there, we went back to his fall range in October and picked him up right away. Did the same thing he did the year prior.
So this is the area where he did some habitat improvement.
Yep. Back into that, I'm going to call it, we call it the valley. It's just a kind of a valley with a bunch of CRP grass, pine trees, willows, a bunch of different stuff planted in there. And the deer and the rut really like that spot. It's kind of a bedding area.
Yeah.
And it's his fall range. And he did that, this year again. And we picked him up, and I was there for 2 weeks straight, and the weather just wasn't cooperating with us in late October. And I didn't see a single shooter buck in the entire 2 weeks that I was there until the very last night. He finally showed up. We got in that night, and a big front had pushed in, and it started snowing about 45 minutes before dark, and the snow was piling up pretty good. And I just happened to look behind me, and I saw him strolling down the edge of the corn. He would have passed by at about 15 yards if he was going to follow the corn through. And I knew it was him right away. It's kind of starting to get, last light. We're down to the last 10, 15 minutes of shooting hours.
I hate that. I don't like the last 10 minutes because you're like, they better come quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like,
You're on
please
pins and
just come
needles.
on. Yeah.
Especially when you're down to the end of your trip and it's like, they're there.
That's
They're-
stressful.
Yeah. It's just, you're waiting for them and you get that front and everything just feels perfect. And you're down to the last 15 minutes of your hunt essentially. And it's just not working.
I always debate, should I get down now? You know what I mean? Is it time? I don't know. I always end up sitting too long. I feel till it's dark, completely dark. Cause I don't know when to go.
When to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, after spending 2 weeks there, I was kind of in the same boat. Like, man, well, I guess I'm going home without a deer. This is it, and there he was. He just, I'm facing into the snow, and it's a blizzard at this point. It's blowing 35 miles an hour, snowing. And it's
on what day?
October the 26th it was. And
that was the very beginning of that front.
Yeah.
Cause it hit here the day after. And so you were getting it. Interesting.
Yep. And, so he strolled through behind me, and he was moving. I knew he wasn't going to come. I was facing away from the cornfield. The cornfield was behind me. So I'm wondering if he's going to come into my setup, where all the scrapes and the corn and everything are, if he's going to come in there, or he's just going to run this edge looking for does. Well, he come through behind me, and it became pretty obvious that he wasn't going to come into my setup. He was just cruising the edge of the corn and wasn't going to come in. So I knew I had to make a quick move. And I pretty much, as he got behind my tree, I spun around. I had a small opening, and I went to full draw, sitting down almost directly behind me, a really weird angle, and let the shot off at about 15 yards. And immediately I knew I hit low. Like, oh no. And I was testing a new head, brand new expandable head. And He ran off.
Is that the one that you're launching this year?
That was the one we're going to launch at ATA. Yep. So and that was that the first or second deer I killed with that head? Anyway, he ran off right down the edge of the corn, and it's snowing like a son of a gun. And so I give him a little time. It's dark. I climb down. I find the arrow, and the arrow has hardly any blood on it, just kind of some of that fatty stuff. Like, oh man, I hit him low, didn't I? Because I knew the angle was messed up. I rushed the shot. It wasn't ideal. Started trailing them, and I surprisingly started finding some really good blood. Really good blood. I trailed him probably 80 yards, and I mean, he's spraying blood both sides, all over the corn. I'm like, okay, I think I got him. So at that point, my dad was coming to pick me up. He was hunting 2-3 miles away. And so I backed out, went and got him, said, hey, I shot Stubby. I'm positive it's him. I'm pretty excited. And him and I went in to start tracking a little further. Well, we ended up tracking him about 250 yards.
Then you start scratching your head a little?
Yeah, I started getting worried. I'm like, all right, I hit him lower than I realized. I thought maybe I got heart.
But are you like getting good blood? Like you're following good blood?
It's one of the best blood trails I've ever seen. But 250 yards, that's a long way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting nervous. And I'm a big advocate for, if you're not comfortable in the shot, get out of there, give him some time,
Mm-hmm.
So I told my dad, I said, we're getting out of here. And it's still snowing and blowing. He's like, are you sure? It's going to cover up all that blood. Like, well, I don't want to push him. We push him, we're never going to find him. So
Standing cornfield. How big's the cornfield? Acres and acres and acres?
So it's a several 100-acre cornfield, but the area he ran into is where it necks down to where maybe it's 200, 300 yards wide, and it runs up towards the road for about that width. And there's a slough and a lake on the back side of it, and that's the direction he's headed. So we back out of there.
So you have a good idea of where he's kind of going.
Yep, we got a pretty good idea. He's headed for that slough, or he's headed for across the road, which would be bad because it's a wide open soybean field there.
So is it like this slough area? Is it like really thick, high density, like stem count, or is it?
Yeah, it's very thick. It's I would call it a bedding area. I mean, the cattails are very thick, very tall. They just have little runways weaved in and out of it, So likely that's where he's headed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we back out, say, well, let's go get some dinner. Let's give this deer some time. We'll come back at 11 o'clock. We go back, and it's at this point it's snowing bad. We're doing 25 miles an hour driving back to the house, and the snow is just coming down, drifting. We eat our dinner. I'm like, man, I just don't have a good feeling about this. Part of me wanted to leave until morning. Part of me knew that if we don't get back on him, that blood's gonna be gone.
So when you say low, like talk to me more about like where you thought you hit him.
So I thought I would have taken him right through, slightly above the armpit, heart shot, but I didn't think it was going to be as low as it actually was.
So you're like in line with the heart, but you think it's a little low. Like what about, was he quartering at all?
Slightly quartering away.
Slightly quartering away.
Slightly quartering away, but not much. And the arrow I thought went in maybe 4 or 5 inches up into the cavity. Left and right was perfect. And once I started seeing that blood trail, I'm like, okay, this looks great. But anyway, we had our dinner, headed back out, and
what'd you eat for dinner?
That's a great question. Not much, I'll tell you that. I was sick. I was sick to my stomach. I was pretty uneasy.
Yeah.
To see this deer for 3 years, to build a history with him, to have him on the ground with my girlfriend at 6 yards, like it's pretty high intensity here. Like I'm on pins and needles.
Yeah, if you knew what you ate for dinner, it wouldn't make sense. It makes better sense you didn't know.
I know the beer tasted good. I know that. It was cold.
That's good.
So we go back in 11 o'clock.
At night.
Dark. That night. I call the farmer and say, hey, I know it's a blizzard. You're probably not going to be able to see anything, but if you see flashlights back behind your place tonight, that's us. I shot a deer. I just want to give you a heads up. It's like, all right, well, you better get them before the coyotes get them. because there's a lot of them around. We get back there and try to pick up the trail again. We actually, before we left, we tied a little piece of plastic onto a corn stalk, thinking maybe we'd find it. We tracked it with Onyx. For the life of us, couldn't find that. So we had to go all the way back to the start and try to find blood again and start tracking them that way. Well, the blood was gone. I mean, it was covered. Even on the corn stalks, the vertical corn stalks, there was snow sticking to it. You couldn't see nothing. So eventually we did find a good pool of blood where we had left off, found the bag or the piece of plastic there that we last blood before we left, and started tracking and realized that we're not finding any blood. This is going to be really hard. So now I'm really in the dumps.
That's a moment I've been at too often where it's like, I don't know what you're about to tell me next, but it sounds like you're going to start just looking for a body.
Essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do? And especially in the middle of a cornfield.
There's nothing worse than that.
Yeah.
Right there. Like that moment where you got nothing. You literally have nothing. You're emotionally absolutely invested, and everybody's looking at it. Everybody like, are we about to? We're about to start looking. Like, is that
right? Like, who's going to call it?
Yeah. Like, where are we at? Like, that's the worst.
Yeah. You notice that your flashlights start waving around a little more frantically.
Exactly.
And yeah, so you're worried. And I was just upset that, my shot wasn't good mostly at that point. And I'm just, thinking in my head, I'm like, you're an idiot. Why
all the
take that
negativity
shot?
starts pouring in.
It does. And you're thinking the worst. So finally we realized that the blood was still there. It hadn't melted away or washed away by any means, but we had to kick the snow away with our feet to be able to see it. So I'm tracking this deer through this cornfield with my feet, brushing snow away. And if it turns red, that's the way he went.
So how many inches were on the ground, and then how many inches were on top of that where the blood was? Like, what does the layer look like?
So the bottom layer was kind of starting to melt off because the ground wasn't frozen. I would say we had about 3 inches. But you could see, as you would take a step, they would start turning red. And so you'd brush it away and see if it was red or not. And it wasn't like he was just running right down a individual corn row.
Right.
He was dodging, weaving, all that kind of stuff, and at this point,
he was dodging and weaving
in between rows. Yep.
Does that make you think that he was hit hard or that he was...
That made me start to think that maybe he's running out of steam or he's looking for somewhere to lay up,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm starting to feel a little better, and it's still fantastic blood. I mean, literally I've never seen a blood trail this big in my life, ever. But the problem, the concern of mine was we had been into this track job for about 400 yards now.
Wow.
Which is a long way to go.
It's a really long way, yeah.
And then we picked up a fresh set of coyote tracks, and they were red. Of course, there was a coyote right on this deer trailing him, and there was no snow in his tracks. So, I mean, literally this coyote was just ahead of us, or at that point was probably run off, but we had just missed this coyote. Anyway, his tracks took us to the deer.
The
coyote tracks. He never touched the deer, but he went right to him, took us right to him, following the coyote's red footprints in the snow.
How long from the 400 yards to where you found the deer?
About another 100 yards.
So would it have been really difficult to find this deer?
It would have, yeah.
Like, do you think you would have or no?
I don't know. I mean, in the middle of a cornfield like that, it's hard saying. You can't see as far as you'd like to think you can. But I would have scoured those rows up and down every which way. Probably would have found him, I would guess. But I guess there's a chance we wouldn't have. You never know.
So you're following the coyote tracks.
Yeah.
In the snow.
Yep.
And you could see blood where his tracks were.
His tracks were literally red. Yeah. And we must have ran that coyote off at just the right time to where he never touched my deer. Nothing. And
so like who specifically found him first?
That's another great question. Once
because I'm imagining it's dark and I'm imagining
I
there's
think my dad did.
3 or 4 people there or whatever, and it's a chaotic moment.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my dad saw him first. It was kind of there was some elevation in the cornfield, and we started getting out towards the edge where the corn met the slough, and the corn started getting shorter. He was able to see a little higher into it, and I think he called him out. And man, was I happy to see that deer. Oh my gosh.
Was it a moment?
Yeah. I did not think we were finding them. I was at rock bottom, like, man, this is the deer I wanted like all year on this trip. I either wanted me or my girlfriend to get them. Sorry, Dad, but that's the way we wanted it to happen. And to finally get a shot, and then to go from shoot, I think I wounded this thing, to finding them. It was a high to low scenario, but man, was I happy.
Was he bigger than you thought?
His body was. His rack was about as expected. He ended up scoring 153 and some change. So real solid deer, real heavy. He had 6-inch bases, real good buck. Shot was lower than I thought. It was, he was close enough to me when I took the shot, and I was high enough in the tree that the entrance didn't look terrible had I been on the ground, but the exit literally come out right through the bottom of him.
Yeah.
Right through his chest cavity. So,
yep. Kind of like,
yeah,
something like that.
But even lower.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got pretty lucky, and I.
But that's why you had the good blood.
That is totally why.
Yeah.
It was one of the best blood trails I've ever seen, and
it's in the bottom of the the bottom of the bucket.
Yeah, and I'm a big advocate, even though I'm producing these broadheads on why I found this deer was because of this broadhead.
Mm-hmm.
With a small fixed head, I might not have got this deer.
That's wild. So that broadhead is going to be at ATA this year, y'all. Y'all go out and buy one of those.
Go buy them.
I'm going to get one.
They're nasty, man. They are nasty.
And without going into too much detail, you said it was mechanical.
It's a big mechanical. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued.
And that's, just right there, like I said, there's pros and cons to broadheads and fixed and expandables, but this is one of the times when an expandable paid off.
Mm-hmm.
That bigger cut saved my ass.
Mm-hmm. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
You're going to have to, I want to see a photo of this deer. You said 6-inch bases?
Yeah. He had way more mass than I gave him credit for.
Like, that's huge.
He's heavy.
Wow.
Yep. He's a good deer. He's my second biggest, actually. Yep.
That's phenomenal.
I was pretty pumped up.
So, I don't think I've ever heard that, where the coyote trail in the snow, and the fact that that's pretty unique. That's pretty unique.
Yeah, it was almost like a godsend, like, all right, this coyote is really about to take me right to the deer.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the trail, there were some really big pools of blood where he was kind of clotting up or, spilling out whatever was left. I don't know. But the coyote stopped at those, and you could tell he was pawing around in the blood, probably just long enough to stall us coming in and running the coyote off from eating the deer or tearing into him,
Mm-hmm.
So it really couldn't have worked out any better.
I've heard this before. We had Aaron Olson on with Next Step Outdoors. He was talking about a deer that he had shot, and I believe it was in North Dakota, and it was literally demolished. There was nothing. There was nothing on the deer. Like, it was a skeleton.
That's crazy.
And it was like, I can't remember how much time had gone by, but I think it was like a day. I think it was like the next morning type thing. Not a full day, but like he shot it in the evening, came back the next morning, and it was like skeleton.
Well, there's so many of them out in those western states. It's just it's such an unpopulated area, and they really don't have any predators.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's wild. And then the rancher said, "You better get him before the coyotes do."
And he wasn't joking. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's every night you sit in your stand and there's multiple packs just going off all around you. So it's that's the first, to my knowledge, coyote I've ever had trailing a deer I shot, like that within just a few hours, really.
Yeah.
So they've got a hell of a nose on them.
Was it still kind of like blizzarding when you were on that recovery?
Oh, the whole time. Yeah, we got back to the house about 1 a.m. that night, and still blizzarding, and yeah, it was nasty. It was almost treacherous. Like, I've got videos on my phone where you literally couldn't even see 20 foot in front of the truck as we're driving. It was bad.
Wow. So how like you said he was going towards this slough. He didn't quite make it, did he?
Just about. He came close. So he died about 50 yards from the end of the cornfield.
So from the point of impact to the point where you found him, 600 yards, you're saying?
550 right in there. Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy, so I hit the heart. I did. And for that deer to go that far on a heart shot is insane.
It really is.
But it's one thing we were kind of discussing is he was running through a cornfield, so it might be a long distance, but the actual time of him running in seconds was probably very short.
Yeah.
I mean, he was carrying the mail. So
did it look like he was like full stride, like running hard?
I think judging by what tracks we could see at the initial part of the track, and when I saw him the first 100 yards, I lost sight of him about 100 yards after the shot. And I mean, he was moving quick. I would not doubt the deer was dead within 15 seconds of the shot.
Right.
But he just was moving that fast and covered 550 yards that quick.
And so that was the 26th of October.
It was.
Was that quite literally the front of the front?
That was the very first part of it. Yep. It literally started snowing in the stand that night and continued on. And I mean, it went from probably 45, 50 degrees down to, I think we woke up the next morning and it was below 20, not 20 below, but it was in the 20s, 15, something like that.
So that buck, more than likely, based on your setup, you think that he was on a search for a doe? Like, is that what he kind of like showed you?
I think so, because the little valley I was hunting, there was probably a dozen scrapes in there. It was tore up. I mean, tons of deer in there, lots of does bedding in there, lots of other bucks coming through in the last couple of days, but it was all nighttime activity until that day. I think that front is what got him on his feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Devin, the deer that he had shot with this broadhead, it was on, I think it was the 25th, the 26th, one of those 2 days. Anyway, he was like, we had a whole podcast about that deer, but he wanted to hunt the front of the front.
Yep.
Like not the front, but the front of the front.
The preparation of the front.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. And I think it probably lined up exactly with that hunt that you just shared with us, which is crazy.
I think there was a lot of big deer killed in that 3-4 day span there across the entire Midwest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. That tells a lot. This year we were pretty spoiled. I think the weather and the timing and the pressure and like all the things, it like lined up.
It all worked out, and you don't see that every year.
Man, did it line up like the 26, 27, 28, 29, and then Halloween, like through that chunk of time, it was like lights out.
Yeah, and I'll take the cold fronts right there versus the 10th of November.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather hunt them when they're hitting scrapes and they're searching for does, but they're not all out chasing. Where you can still pattern your buck that you're after.
Yep. And
he's not in the next county.
Yeah.
That's like you said, it lined up perfectly.
I got exposed to that. Like you're just saying, like you're trying to target deer. Like that's something that I'm personally trying to do is get better at targeting like a deer and killing that deer. That's just like a part of what I'm trying to do personally. And it's hard.
It's so hard.
It's hard.
But gosh, is it rewarding.
It really is. And like, I used to really like the rut and now I don't like it as much because it's like very sporadic and it's not as calculated. You know what I mean? It's just, you're kind of wishing and hoping upon a prayer type thing. And you're in the areas that are going to give you the best odds, but it's more fun when like there's that deer still going to be in its home range and it's doing buck things in that time of year. And that, like you said, that's special when you get the weather and the wind and everything's lining up, man.
That's those October cold fronts. That's where it's at.
I want to be back in October.
I know.
Right
Can
now.
we rewind?
Wow,
man.
So this spot though, you said that specific spot, he was going to probably check does, front of the cold front. That was the only deer you saw that night?
I saw what I see. I think I saw a button buck and a smaller 8-point. But yeah, I didn't see the movement I was expecting. And I think a lot of that was because of the previous winter's kill off. Overall, we saw way less deer than we normally do. I mean, and especially mature bucks. I had a lot of deer from the year prior that we're really excited about. And I unfortunately think a lot of them died.
Do you think, I mean, I've never hunted North Dakota. I've been in North Dakota, been in Nebraska. Do you think it's just the temperatures and the wind or both, or one or the other? Like, what stands out? I guess.
So I think it's a mix of everything for sure. This particular past winter was the fact that they got hammered with snow late in the year. Like I think it was March maybe that they got a insane snowstorm. So these deer were already beat down from the entire winter. And then they just got that last pile of snow that never melted off, and there was just no food.
Mhm.
I mean, literally, these deer were like out there. The snow drifts so bad. You know, you'll have a 4 or 5, 8 foot, even larger snow drift on the side of a hill, and these deer just really couldn't maneuver around. They couldn't get to the food.
Got it.
And typically, the deer yard up on the farm we hunt. Well, the farmer he mentioned that this year they yarded up south of him in the hills, which is there's no cropland down there. Because that was the only cover they could find was the hills, and there's just no food. And yeah, it sounds like it's just kind of a wasteland down that way. Even when I talked to him during rifle season, he said that they weren't seeing any deer.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a bummer, but that's part of it.
Yeah. So what was the actual, like, did you field dress the deer way out there, drag him back? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah, so we I carry one of those little jet sleds around.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily we were able to drive the truck all but 200 yards probably from him.
Mm-hmm.
So I loaded him up in the jet sled and got him back to the truck, loaded him up. We were staying in an Airbnb, no garage. So he laid in the bed of the truck overnight and naturally became frozen.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to bring in deer back to Michigan. They have to be fully processed. You can't bring any spinal, brain matter, stuff like that. So luckily, the farmer was able to string him up in his heated shop and let him on thaw for a few hours so we could process them and then hit the road. But yeah, I was thinking, man, now what? You know, I got the deer. Now the work begins.
Do you typically shoot a deer out there every year or no?
I've been going for 8 years and I've killed 6, I think. So most years.
Yeah, that's kind of the MVP of this whole thing is like the rancher.
Yeah.
This guy being gracious enough to like share his property, like that's pretty cool.
Oh, he's the man. Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because he's got the best property in the county, I would say. He's got all the deer, all the big deer, and he doesn't let anybody hunt. He's like, I'll go into a bar out there and people are like, oh, you're that guy from Michigan that hunts so-and-so's property, aren't you?
No way.
Yeah, it's happened to me, and I don't think they really like me for it.
What do you think about this guy? Like, do you think he likes you because you're testing your new broadheads, or like what about it? Like, is it just a relationship over the years? Like, what about it?
So he's always gone out west elk hunting and stuff like that, and he knows what it's like to travel halfway across the country and hunt, and just to have access to a place. I think he just really, for one, we're bow hunters. He doesn't really bow hunt a whole lot, so I mean that helped. But then just seeing us put in a lot of work and driving across the country and everything that we do, I think he kind of respected
the passion. Yeah.
Yeah. And he wanted to kind of help us out. And we've just built a great relationship off from it. And, I try to treat him right on our end. I always take him a gift every year. And I'm trying to get him to come over here fishing one of these years. I tell him, we don't have big deer really, but we got some amazing fishing. So
we really do. Yeah, we do.
But it's just a cool place.
That's awesome. So I want to end with, I want to ask you a question. So if you were your younger self, right? Younger Matt, and here you are now, you know what you have a broadhead company. Like, what is like one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you could?
Oh, probably to start sooner. Just go with your gut and don't doubt yourself and just go with it. I think there's a lot of people that believe that they can't do things, and that goes with anything in life. You can accomplish anything you put your mind to. Just don't give up, and that's all the way down to going out and killing a big buck or building a business. You name it. Put your mind to something. Don't give up. Don't listen to the haters, and just stick with it.
Yeah.
And I think it took me a few years to kind of realize that anything's possible, and yeah.
Do you think you've learned a lot of that through the business?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
Yep. That's I've learned a lot.
I could not agree more. Like, yeah, you do. What you're basically saying is listen to your instincts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what you're capable of. Just go do it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people doubt themselves and they never start. So
that's amazing. Did I miss anything on the hunt? Is there anything else?
No, man, I think we covered it pretty dang good.
Pretty good in detail.
Yeah.
Tell the people where they can find you. Anything you want to mention at the end here about how they can get in touch with you, anything like that.
Yeah, check us out. It's rekbroadheads.com, and that's spelled REK. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Give these things a shot. We want to hear from you guys. You know, if you try them out, you kill something, send some pictures, let us know what you want to see. If we don't have a broadhead you want, let us know about it.
Yep. I'm going to be running a Rek Broadhead next year. I think you should too. So, Matt, thanks, brother. Appreciate it. And hope you guys enjoyed this one. See you in the next one.